All right, to start our ceremony, we're going to ask Father Matt Foley, from pastor of St. James Church, to open with a prayer.
Good and gracious God, on this glorious day when we remember, so we never forget, we ask your blessing upon all those families who mourn the loss of their loved ones who did not return. We give their honor and homage to them, gratefully offering up their names as we capture them and their memories and their sacrifices. Bless all gathered here. Keep us steadfast in courage and hope-filled families. We ask this in your most holy name. Amen.
Amen. Now, if you'll please rise, face the flagpole here in the park. The 144th U.S. Army Band, Illinois Army National Guard, will play first the national anthem, and then they'll follow it with the service songs of each of the 5 military services. Hand over your heart, hats off. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Now, please be seated. The band will now play the military service songs of the 5 services. If you served in one of those, please feel free to stand and take that honor. And a big thank you to the 144th Army Band. Now, today in the park, we have many dignitaries with us because we're doing the short ceremony, as they call it. We'll say that we're very pleased and honored to have so many of them with us. Obviously, Senator Kirk to my right here. He's going to make a very special presentation, as well as the mayor of our town, Tom Hayes. I've seen throughout the park many of our trustees from our town, as well as from the park district, and I can't say enough good things about our village and our park district for the way they helped us put on this parade, decked out this beautiful park, and made this all help us make this all happen. Thank you to the Village of Arlington Heights and the Park District. And once again, I'd ask you to look into your programs for the people that we need to thank, so many of them, hundreds of them, who've donated, who've supported us in so many different ways. They're in the program. Look in there and thank them. But people we really need to honor and remember and thank for coming today are the families, the Gold Star families of our fallen heroes. And I'd just like to recognize that we have with us tonight, or today, the family of Richard J. Adam, the family of Wilbert Henry Gieske, the family of Harry Lee Craig, the family of Donald Allen Klarber, the family of William Carl Dabbert, the family of Robert Few Conti, the family of William Robert Newgard, the family of Paul R. Syverson, and the family of James Bray Stack. We're very honored to have them here with us today. And on behalf of the community of Arlington Heights, we make a solemn oath or a solemn promise to these families and all fallen hero families that as long as one veteran lives in our town, or as long as one patriot resides in our community, their fallen heroes will always be honored and they will never, ever be forgotten. That's our promise. Now, we have some Memorial Day welcomes that will be hopefully very short. First is from the commander of Arlington Post, VFW Arlington Post 981, Chuck Vasello. Commander Vasello.
Thank you, Greg. Just before I start, I want to give a big thank you to Greg himself as the chairman of this event, as well as the chairman of the parade, Wallace Luchwager, who is behind me. Thank you both. Mayor Tom Hayes, Senator Mark Kirk, Parade Grand Marshal Richard Duchessois, Brigadier General Grekus Dunn, retired Army Chaplain Father Matt Foley, family, friends, and fellow veterans, good morning. And good for you for joining us at Memorial Park for this year's Memorial Day ceremony. Memorial Day, originally called Decoration Day, was officially proclaimed and first observed on the 30th of May in 1868, when flowers were placed on the graves of Union and Confederate soldiers buried at Arlington National Cemetery. For most, Memorial Day is known for the start of the summer season, family picnics, and concerts in the park. However, Memorial Day is a day of remembrance for those who have died in our nation's service. Unfortunately, the traditional observance of Memorial Day has diminished over the years. Many Americans nowadays have forgotten the meaning and traditions of Memorial Day. At many cemeteries across our nation, the graves of fallen heroes are increasingly ignored or neglected. While there are towns and cities that still hold Memorial Day parades, such as the village of Arlington Heights properly continues, and has incidentally for the past 95 years, there are many that have not held a parade in decades, and that's a shame. Memorial Day is a sacred occasion for most veterans, as it should be for all Americans. Yet it remains one of the least participated in of all American holidays. So in conclusion, I say to all of you who are here this morning, good for you who are being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Commander Vasello. Next is our wonderful mayor of the village of Arlington Heights, an Army veteran and a West Point graduate, although we won't hold that against him. Mayor Tom Hayes.
Thanks, Greg, and thanks to all of you for joining us here on this beautiful morning. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, on behalf of the entire Village Board of Trustees and the citizens we represent, it is my honor to officially welcome you to Memorial Park this morning. In a community where many have answered the call to serve others, we gather here today to honor and remember those who answered the ultimate call to duty, honor, and country in the defense of freedom. From the Civil War in the 1860s to the current war in Afghanistan, Arlington Heights residents have answered that call for more than 150 years. In order to help us remember that history, we have incorporated a timeline of the wars, conflicts, and operations in which our residents have fought, and in some cases died, in over those years into the Central Plaza here in our Memorial Park. And I would encourage you to spend time either here today or in the days ahead in reflecting on what that timeline represents to all of us. During the Civil War, the job of color bearer was one of the most hazardous as well as important duties in the Army. Soldiers looked to the flag for direction and inspiration in battle, as the color bearer was usually out in front, drawing the heavy enemy fire while holding that flag high. Carrying a regiment's colors into battle was considered an honor and privilege because at that time units were formed by local geographic regions, so the men that were fighting alongside their family and friends from their local communities. We honor and remember our own fallen heroes today, those color bearers who carried the Arlington Heights flag into battle. Like those who carried their regimental flags on the front lines in the Civil War, our own color bearers cared deeply about their cause, but cared even more about their brothers in arms and the families and friends they fought for back home. Soon we will be hearing the names of 269 men and women who carried that flag on behalf of their community and country. As on the front lines at Gettysburg and other great battles, when the flag bearers fell, others must pick up those flags and lead the charge. I can think of no better way for the next great generation of Americans to honor those we remember here today than to say, "Here I am, let me carry that flag." Thank you again for joining us today to help honor and remember those noble soldiers who answered that call to duty and sacrificed all so that we might live free. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mayor Hayes. Also, today, we'd like to honor and recognize the representatives of our 4 veterans units or 4 veterans organizations that we have here in Arlington Heights. First, you heard from Commander Chuck Vasello, VFW, Arlington Post 981. Behind me, we have the commander of American Legion Merrill Post 208, and that's Jerry Malik. He will be reading the names later. And then we also have the commandant of the Northwest Suburban Marine Corps League, Detachment 80, Al Colliget. And then I wasn't able to see him, but from the Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 311, Jim Bruckman. Are you here, Jim? Raise your hand. Oh, Jim, please come on up. We should have had you up on the stage. This is the Vice President of the Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 311. Welcome home. That's the 2 words they'd like to hear. Also, I want to make a special note and a special thank you to the Civil Air Patrol. Now, you've seen some of these very well-dressed, blue-suited young people over here. They are the Civil Air Patrol, who are the auxiliary of the United States Air Force. And not only did they escort the float of our fallen heroes through the parade to give them an honor guard through the whole parade, they're also the ones that are responsible for that helicopter that flew overhead. So we owe them a very big round of applause and thanks for what they've done for us. Now, we have a very special presentation. Very honored to have Senator Mark Kirk with us today, and he's bringing something with him that I think will make Memorial Day even more special. Senator Kirk?
I am here today on Memorial Day to honor an Illinois veteran named Johnny Bach. I want to bestow upon him a Bronze Star, which he earned from his service just during the Battle of the Bulge. I will note that the Bronze Star is for valor. Let's all take a look at it here. Isn't that cool? Yeah. So Nancy Clauser, his cousin, is coming up to accept it on behalf of her cousin, who unfortunately deceased in 2010.
There you are, behind you, Senator.
Okay.
There you go.
Nancy, come on up.
Okay.
This is the big moment, Nancy.
Yes.
You can't let it fall off.
No. I can't.
Nancy told me something about Johnny Bach. He was an aeronautical engineer, and he flew a glider into D-Day, and he even designed airplanes of his own.
Yeah.
And Johnny Bach, he went into battle. Uncle Sam didn't even give him an airplane with an engine in it. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, the Clauser family thanks you on behalf of the whole family. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. We honor Johnny's service.
Thank you.
Let me quickly ask something that I usually act at these gatherings. For all those who served in the United States Army, please stand and be applauded. For the Army veterans that we have, please stand, you Army guys. For the Marines who are with us, please stand and be recognized, Marines. For Air Force with us, please stand and be recognized, Air Force. For my fellow Navy veterans who had the opportunity to serve in the finest naval force that it was ever put in the 7 seas. Round of applause for our local veterans here, everybody. The people who kept us free. Thanks, guys, everybody.
We have something very special for our next three speakers. The first one, you probably all know. Everybody knows the Arlington International Racecourse that's here in Arlington Heights and been such a wonderful member of our community for so many years. And Mr. Richard Duchessois has been chairman of that from the beginning, for a long time, I'm sorry. And yet we don't know about what he was or what he did before he started his very successful business career. Like so many of the greatest generation, he served in the American military during World War II. And in particular, he was in the Army, and he served in the European theater as an officer in a anti-tank battalion. Now you have to know that that's the group, those are the guys that went up against the German armor in 5 major campaigns. He was, from Normandy all the way through the end of the war, including the Battle of the Bulge. And if you'd like to see Mr. Duchessois' military history, his brick is in the park here around the eternal flame. And that bronze flame we call the eternal flame. At the foot of that flame and all around it are bricks for any veteran from anywhere commemorating their service and their sacrifice. Families usually get these bricks for their veterans, whether they're living or past. And we also have a very special section called the Fallen Heroes section, where there are 58 Arlington's fallen heroes that are listed there individually in each brick, as well as another 50 bricks from fallen heroes anywhere in our country. This is, as Mayor Tom Hayes was saying, this is hallowed ground in our town. So if you have the time, if you have the interest, please come in and walk into the center of our park here, look down and read the bricks. There's almost 650 of them there. And they all tell a story of service and sacrifice of generations of Americans that made our freedom possible. So now, without further ado, I'd like you to welcome Mr. Richard Duchessois.
Thank you, Greg. Greg said to make it short, and you can see I have a lot of paper here, but I'm not going to go through it all. I want to tell you how honored I was today and how impressed I was with the turnout all along the parade route. I congratulate you and all of the people that have done so much work to put that parade together. Yeah. I'm not a very good speaker, so I'd like to just visit with you for a little bit and tell you how I feel about Veterans Day, or Armistice Day, Memorial Day, and all of the days that we celebrate for the veterans and the people that have been to the war. The end of this week, I'm going to have the privilege of being over in Normandy, and I do hope that I have the opportunity to visit some of the grave sites of some of the people that I had the privilege of training with and who are still over there, but they aren't up on their feet. Oftentimes, I feel that I get complaining to myself about what's happening here in our country. I complain a little bit about the government. I complain about our competitors. I complain about a lot of things. Then I wake up and I say, why am I complaining? I'm living in the greatest country in the world. Then I ask myself, why is it that so many people from around the world want to come over here to live, and very few people from here want to go over there to live? Well, I think I have an answer of it. It's about freedom. We are here, we can speak, we can do most of the things we want. We have the opportunity to raise families, live where we want. We can do most anything that we want as long as it's within the law and is morally correct. I'd like to skip through most of the things I had up here because you've heard all the old war stories over and over again. But there was a lot of things that happened and a lot of learning to be picked up after the war. I'd like to tell you one quick story as to why I think these men and women that have served our country have done so well, why we have America as it is today, why we have the freedom we have today, why we have the opportunity to succeed or fail as we do today. After the shooting all stopped over in Europe, the military government was a little bit slow in getting over there to take charge of Germany. So the combat troops had to substitute for a while. I was given a Kreis to manage. A Kreis is a section of Germany. It's not as big as a state, but it's bigger than a county. We moved in there, and I only had maybe, it was either 3 or 4 officers and about 6 or 7 enlisted men. By the way, we got replaced with what we were doing with 50 some odd people when they came over with the military government. But I was the mayor, I was the police chief, I ran the jail, I was the judge, and anything that you had to do with moving over there, that is the German citizens, they had to come and see me. Well, one day, a farmer came in with his wife. They obviously were too old to have served in the army of Germany. And what they wanted to get, 2 things. One was permission to move out of the Kreis we were in, Kreis Eichstätt, into the next neighboring Kreis. It was simple. I didn't know people had to move from one county to the next, had to get a permit. The second thing they came in, they wanted to kill their pig. Oh, well, what's wrong with that? I signed the thing so they could kill their pig because they said their family was starving and they needed the meat. I signed that and handed it to them, and the lady came over and she had tears in her eyes. She said, "We can't use this." And I asked why. I was dumbfounded at her answer. she said, "You haven't told us who we have to divide the meat with." Now, is that freedom? Is that the way we live here? Are we under those restrictions? No. But are other people around the world under those restrictions? I believe so. The men and women that we're honoring today are the ones that really have set our country into what we have today. It's given us the freedom to live, the freedom to do whatever we would like as long as it's morally correct. It's given us the freedom to succeed. It's given us the freedom to fail. It's given us the freedom to have parades such as we have today. I bless the days that we have here. This thing started back with the Revolutionary War. But where a real change came in the generations that we live in was at Normandy. Had we not been able to push the German army back in Normandy, we would be asking for the permit to move over to Lake County, Cook County, or whatever county it was. We would be asking for the permits to share everything that we had grown and all of our needs. They didn't have the freedom to do anything without going to the government and asking for permission. Isn't it wonderful that we have a country and a government such as we do? No other place in this world do they have that freedom. And I bless my country every day I wake up. We have the very best of everything. And this is what I think we're really celebrating today. So many of our citizens paid the ultimate price. Some have returned to this country, and some are still buried in Europe, and some are buried out in the Pacific. They did that for us. And I think that we should show appreciation for all of those that did come back and all of those that aren't going to come back. And that's what you're doing today. And I want to say thank you for them. Only in America can we have a system that we live in that is so great, so strong, that the rest of the world wants to come over here. And the complaining that we sometimes talk about is very small, because we haven't had the opportunity to see how they live in some of these other countries. I really don't look forward to going back to Europe, but on the other hand, I'm very anxious to go back. A long time ago, I quit thinking about all of the war stories and that. I wanted to get them out of my mind. But now in the past couple of years, I've had an aching and a feeling to go back and look at some of the battlegrounds that we had such a hard time at. I specifically want to go down and see the Moselle again. That's where I got shot up. I want to go to Avalanches. I want to go to Argenton. That's where we lost so many of our people. I want to see some of the other places in Europe. I want to go back to the Battle of the Bulge and visit some of the towns around through there. But on the other hand, I don't really want to go back, but I can learn a lot by going back, and it renews the appreciation that I have for this country. It renews the appreciation of the opportunities this country has given me and given you. And never again will I go back after this trip. But I thank you and I congratulate you for the wonderful parade you put on today.
Thank you so much, Mr. Duchessois. We really are honored to have you. And of course, all those things that you've said today really strike home with all of us. We're very honored to have as our next guest speaker, Brigadier General Gracchus Dunn. He is the commanding general of the 85th U.S. Army Support Command, which is headquartered here in Arlington Heights. We've been honored to have him join us in a number of parades in our past Memorial Days. And sadly, he is now, as the Army is wont to do, changing his station. They call it permanent change of station, as they're moving him somewhere else. So he is going to be here for the last time. And so we'd like to hear from General Dunn one more time about his thoughts on Memorial Day and our town. General Dunn.
Well, good afternoon, Arlington Heights. To the Honorable U.S. Senator Mark Kirk, to Mayor Thomas Hayes, Mr. Richard Duchessois, and also to Captain Foley. Captain Foley, Chaplain Captain Foley. But look here, as Greg mentioned, all good things must come to an end. And I took that quote from something that was said in the movie Patton about one of the world's greatest Army generals, General George S. Patton, which I think some people here have served under before. And I want to say to Arlington Heights, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for allowing this young American to be a part of your community for the past 3 years. I've been in the Army for almost 33 years. The Army's been around for about 235 plus years. And I've been in quite a few parades. And I marched in the Chicago parade, which is just huge. It's large, it's big. But one thing I always tell the citizens here in Arlington Heights that I like about this parade, and think about this, it's like a Norman Rockwell picture. You start and you stage at the local fire station. Then you march around, you pass the bank, you pass through some part of downtown, and you cross the railroad track where this train station is. Then you come across and you see how Arlington Heights has grown. And then you come into the neighborhoods and you see the families out there, the moms, the dads, the grandmothers, the relatives out there with the kids on blankets in their lawns. And you come to the neighborhood of the village of Arlington Heights, and then you wind up at the city park. Where else in America do you see that with this type of crowd? So I want to give you guys a round of applause for being such great Americans. And so far as Memorial Day is concerned, I would like to thank the veterans, all the veterans, those who have served in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and the conflicts that I've been a part of, Somalia, Bosnia, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and also those service members who have served both in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I want to thank the Gold Star families in the audience here today. You are the true heroes, for you keep the flame going in remembrance of all service members who have served in all four services of the United States Armed Forces. Last November, my command, 85th Support Command, had the privilege of awarding a World War II veteran, Mr. Frank Andrews, who's in his early 90s along with his beautiful wife, from the city of Des Plaines. Now remember, Frank Andrews left for World War II just like everybody else. He left, and he left a 3-month-old son behind. And he went off to World War II, was wounded and fought in many battles. Well, that 3-month-old baby is now a 70-year-old child, still living. But anyway, this command had the honor of honoring Mr. Frank Andrews 68 years after World War II, the 6 medals that he did not receive from that conflict. Can you imagine that? But here's just one example, one of many stories that if you talk to all the veterans, the fathers, the grandfathers, they have many stories to tell. Many stories to tell. But the thing I would just like to say, that Arlington Heights, you represent America. As I look at it, I see all the flags. I see the Boy Scout troops. I see the Civil Air Patrols. You are the future leaders. You will carry that discipline. You will carry the respect of not only yourself, but that of your families and that of your communities. And then soon, you will become one of the leaders here in this country. Some of you will wear the uniform, some of you will serve a lifetime, and some of you become great community leaders like our elected officials here and our business leaders here. But what I want to tell you, Arlington Heights, you are what is good about America. And as 33 years have come to an end, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this great village. I know it's not a city because they told me it's a village. So I do have it in mind. But Greg, I also want to give you a special thanks to you for allowing me to be a part of this tradition and also a part of the village of Arlington Heights. So, I'll leave you with this message. The strength of our nation is our Army. The strength of our Army are the soldiers. The strength of our soldiers are the families. And for the Army Reserve, the strength of the families are the communities, such as the village of Arlington Heights. Thank you so much, and God bless America.
Well, General Dunn, thank you for your kind words. In honor and in special recognition of your dedicated service, not only to our country, but in particular to our great community, we wanted to present you with this very special proclamation recognizing your years of service again to our country, but also in particular your last 3 years to the village of Arlington Heights. We very much appreciate and value all of our community partners here in the village of Arlington Heights. And one of the very special partners that we have had the privilege of having in our village is the Army Reserve Center on Central Road. We very much appreciate the presence of your unit and all its troops in our community. We very much are thankful for all of that means to our community. We very much appreciate your representation here at all of our community events over the past 3 years. And so in special recognition of your 3 years as a unofficial member of the village of Arlington Heights, we wanted to present you with this proclamation. So just very briefly, General Dunn, whereas Brigadier General Gracchus Dunn will be departing Arlington Heights on June 7th, 2014, after 30 years of dedicated service to the U.S. Army. He is recognized for his outstanding leadership in a dual assignment as the commanding general of the Chicago, Illinois-based 85th Support Command, which is located in Arlington Heights, and as the deputy commanding general for support 1st Army Division West in Fort Hood, Texas. Now, therefore, I, Thomas W. Hayes, Mayor of the Village of Arlington Heights, along with the Village Board of Trustees, do hereby recognize General Dunn for his exceptional military career, his commitment to selfless service, and his loyalty to protect the lives of people and the values that are the backbone of our nation. We encourage residents of Arlington Heights to join us in congratulating Brigadier General Gracchus Dunn upon his departure from the village of Arlington Heights, and join us in thanking him for his exceptional dedication to duty and selfless service. Congratulations, General Dunn. Best of luck in the future to you.
Thank you, sir.
Very much appreciate your service.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is actually the pastor of St. James Church here in Arlington Heights. He came to us about a year ago, and he's done wonderful things with St. James. But before that, he was a U.S. Army chaplain for 6 years. And in those 6 years, he was deployed to Afghanistan under Operation Enduring Freedom 4 times. 4 times he went to Afghanistan to serve and protect our freedoms. He served 1 tour with the 82nd Airborne Division and 1 tour with the 101st Airborne Division, Air Mobile. And he knows how to jump out of perfectly good airplanes. But Father Matt, I've heard him speak a number of times about veterans and about the military, and he's very profound in his experience and relating his experiences of what it's like. So without further ado, please welcome Chaplain Matt Foley.
I can only tell you how humbling it is to stand here in the midst of Arlington Heights. My last deployment, I did get home a year ago on Memorial Day. There were no parades. There were a lot of hugs with families. And there were also the long looks of the families that did not come home to greet their soldiers. And I think everyone here, all the veterans in this midst, long for the day when they could see those children of God united with the ones that love them so dearly, their families. It's such an honor to celebrate in this time of remembrance in Arlington Heights. And as we passed down the streets of Arlington Heights, I could not help but think of the faces of all the fallen comrades that have gone before us, the ones that did not come home to receive those parades. I hope and pray that we honor, most importantly, those Gold Star families today, the ones that are not in our midst, but the ones that are in our souls, emblazoned on our hearts, for the sacrifice they gave for this country and for our freedom. What an honor it is to remember them, those families. Let's pause in silence for those that we've lost, but also remember the families that didn't receive those hugs and the eyes of love and the eyes of justice. And may their souls and all the souls of the faithfully departed, through the mercy of God, may they rest in peace.
Thank you, Chaplain Foley. Our next segment of our ceremony here is something very profound and important to our community. It's the reading of the names of our honored veterans. Now, these are veterans who passed away in the last 12 months. That is, they passed away from May 1st, 2013 through April 30th, 2014. These are the men and the women who served and came home, but because of their service and sacrifices they passed on, we'd like to honor them. And reading those names will be the commander of the American Legion Merrill Guile Post 208, Commander Jerry Malik. Commander Malik.
Good morning and welcome. This park just radiates patriotism. I can feel it all the way up here. And all of you are very, very important to all of everyone's, to each other. Okay, my job here is to read all these names, and the list is long. And I want to be upfront and apologize if I mispronounce any of their names. So I've been asked to expedite this along, and so I'll start with the first name. Anthony Alonji, Jason Wade Anderson, Edward Joseph Anan, William E. Bailey, Fadi Balri, Richard Bell Baker, John E. Bartlett Jr., Ralph Walter Benway, Anthony F. Bacardi, Donald F. Bacardi, William Everett Bandon, Marvin J. Brenner, Lawrence Brasso, Paul J. Bruck, William J. Butchmiller, John Budden, Ellen F. Bussey, Audrey Kane, John J. Canty, Edmund Carlson, Jack A. Clark Jr., John Edward Collins, Joseph Edmund Collington Sr., Edward Condon, James J. Connolly, Lois Joseph Conti, William J. Coyne, Roy S. Kramer, Joseph D. Critton Jr., Charles J. Sarr, Robert W. Kerr, Thomas Joseph Cry, Earl R. Davis, Francis J. Dawson, Frank Robert DeRosa, Elaine L. Detweiler, Eric Thomas Diedrich, John Donato, Robert Joseph Dodson Sr., William E. Douglas, Suzette Douglas, John Drosba, Frederick Dubbs, Robert W. Dykstra, John L. Eichmann, William W. Elhart, William Elhart, Robert E. Fetting, Stephen John Feuder, Jerome S. Ford, Donald F. Frisky Sr., John Glad, Paquelli Garelli, William James Gesser, Peter Carmen Gianpetro, John Gloriso, Andrew J. Gata, Joseph Peter Godlewski, William David Groundwater, Robert J. Hacker, Joseph W. Haffenser, Warren Thomas Hanson, Edward W. Hardy III, William Robert Herman, Frederick Alex Herrick, Martin Powell Hertz Jr., Herbert R. Hessler, William, excuse me, Richard D. Higgins, Thomas J. Hoffer, Margaret Helen Holsworth, Robert Gray Holmes, J. Christopher Houston, George J. Rhodey, Michael A. Huck, Anna Inseliani, Maurice J. Horio, Louis Jacobs, Edward J. J., Carl J. Johnson, Alexander Josa, Eugene K. Kazmarek, Louis Lillian Kirvan, Raymond Charles Counts, John Joseph Kiefer, Irwin George Kempton, Joseph J. Keogh, Frederick D. King, Frank J. Kinch, Richard Kirk, Louis Lillian Curvan, Florienda M. Kekla, Charles William Kosh, William A. Koopman, Clarence F. Kosiak, John A. Kostovich, Stephen Kotchett Jr., Arnold Frederick Krause Jr., Robert J. Kress, Herman F. Kruger, Jerome G. Kuffel, Edward J. Kundrock, Gregory H. Herc, Kenneth L. Lake, Walter Lambert, John Lieberman, Henry J. Lewandowski, Irving Lewis, Louis M. Lichko, Clarence Jan Lobo, Raymond August Logogetti, Salvador Peter Melkasom, John Madden, Eugene Malecki, E. Perry Mann, Leslie Mantwell, Wilford Merrier, Raymond Frank Markowitz, Ernest Martin, William D. Matz Sr., William E. Matthew, Coleman Ray McChristian, George W. McCullough, John F. McDonough, Robert Elwood McHark, W. Dale McLean, John George McLaurin, Anthony Messina, Thomas E. Mirwinski, John Albert Mahalik, Carl Miller, David Mills Jr., Edward J. Maloto, Davis Mishkovich, Joseph C. Morton, Charles Francis Moser, Daniel J. Motzi, Edward David Myers Jr., Robert John Needleman, Leonardo C. Nero, Orville Alvin Nordstrom Jr., Donald G. O'Neill, Ray Matthew O'Neill, Chester D. O'Hava, William H. Hodders Jr., Robert Patch, Daniel J. Patterson, Michael Pavich, Roger Pellinger, Louis Pepperbrink, James E. Pinson, Robert Walter Pitts, Ernest J. Pizzazzi Sr., Paul A. Plankin, James Robert Polk, James A. Post, Robert W. Prenzio, John F. Pryor, Mark Ellen Prohaska, Robert Lee Reddecker, Richard Reinwald, Charles Joseph Reinhold, Edward Reuter, Henry N. Rogers, Donald J. Rohor, Richard Rodo, Michael J. Ryan, Guy J. Scaletti, Ronald Schusler, Albert Robert Schmitz, Donald J. Schultz, Elsam J. Schumacher, Violet Scott, Barbara W. Simic, Charles Francis Simpson, Edward J. Smolinski, Edward Leroy Smith, Charles E. Smith, Carl J. Smith, Walter Lee Spellman, Robert Severs Splithoff, Robert Charles Steffens, Roger E. Steingraber, Stuart Stevenson, Kenneth L. Strick, John Joseph Stubing III, Norman J. Toberman, Ralph Samuel Teeter, George P. Teal, Philip T. Thesis, Charles Alfred Ray Davis, Arthur Preston Davis Jr., Walter Arthur Truder, Jake Tuflell, James F. Ulrich Sr., Richard J. Vahachi, Frederick L. Van Rieck, Cornelius Vanderwich Jr., Robert F. Van Wasser, Robert L. Verhurst, Walter Leonard Vitale, Donald Lewis Vaught, Kenneth Ellen Wojcicki Sr., James M. Walrun, Eugene F. Vasco, Henry Joseph Wigger, Donald Jack Weiss, J. Willinger, Vern Willing Hockey, Bart Wynn, Joseph Wojak, Joseph C. Wojciechowicz, John F. Wolf, Howard F. Yost, Robert Zacharias, Leroy Zimmerman, Jr. That concludes the list. God bless those veterans that we lost, and God bless all of you. God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Commander Malik. And those, again, are the veterans who returned to their families to have a life, and they served and sacrificed in the military for us. But this next group of names that we're going to read are called the Arlington's Fallen Heroes. These are the names, these are the young men, these are the families that we bring ourselves together here on Memorial Day to honor and remember. For these are the ones that have given or paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms. And there's a saying in the military that a soldier dies twice. The first time when they die on the battlefield, and then the second time when their name is no longer spoken. This is why we make that promise to the Gold Star families when we first started this Memorial Day service, to honor and remember and never forget. And part of that promise is delivered here today by reading their names, but also every one of you out there can help with this promise. Simply visit the park here and read their names. They're on the 58 Fallen Heroes of Arlington. Those bricks are in a park in front of the Eternal Flame. But if you see the banner of the Fallen Heroes, it was in the parade today. It lists out all 58. And that banner hangs in our village hall, in our library, in our senior center, and you can see it online at the Arlington Heights Park District under the Memorial Park logo. All those names are available. All those names are available to honor and remember. And they start out with the Civil War. The names are Jacob Sigwald, Walter Kennicott, George R. Bray. In World War I is Theodore Heemsmuth and David H. Hodges. In World War II, they are Warren T. Umbright, John B. Hatch, John J. Nickel, Norman W. Beasy, Douglas F. Milligan, Richard J. Adam, Paul E. Pingle, Theodore H. Meyer, John J. Deutsch, Franklin J. Bublitz, Lyle F. Shane, George F. Grossi, August D. B. Bunsick, Joseph J. Soyan, Paul W. Wood Jr., Eugene M. Potter, James H. Kellogg, Edward G. Deary, Howard P. Crerer, C. W. Samuelovich, James C. Scott, Robert R. Gardner, William W. Behrens, Albert G. Behrens, Morris Bow, Elvin J. Anderson Jr., David Goodlett, Warren J. Hennigan, Wilbert Gieske, Lester Bennett, Harry Fryermuth, Maurice Sheehan, Adolph H. Bussey Jr., Anthony Scalero, Richard F. Lucina, Raymond C. Peters, and Arthur Niebuhr. That's 37 from World War II in a town that had only 4,000 people at the time. Then in the Korean War, Frank E. Blumenschein and John P. Martin Jr. For the Vietnam War, 9 of them: Sammy L. Hartzell, Robert E. Bardash, Daniel R. Shuren, Harry Lee Craig, Douglas D. Vaughn, William C. Dabbert, Donald A. Klarber, Robert F. Conti, and Scott N. Jacobson. Then from Operation Desert Shield, Bradley R. Schult. From Operation Iraqi Freedom, there are Paul R. Syverson, Andrew K. Stern, and William R. Newgard. And finally, from Operation Enduring Freedom, James Bray Stack. These are the men who gave their lives for our freedom. These are the 58 Arlington's fallen heroes. We honor them today. We hope that you will honor them throughout the year by reading their names on the bricks or visiting the library, the village hall, or the senior center, or online and looking at their names and their histories. We conclude our ceremony now with a 21-gun salute. Our rifle squad is, where's our rifle squad? Oh, there they are in the way far back. We're going to conclude our ceremony today with a 21-gun salute provided by the American Legion Post 208 Color Guard. And following that, we will have taps played by the bugler of the 144th Army Band, Illinois Army National Guard. Ready the rifle squad, ready the bugler.
Port, arms. Right, face. Safety's off. Ready? Aim. Fire. Aim. Fire. Aim. Fire. Ready, front. Present arms.
We will conclude our ceremony with a brief prayer from Father Chaplain Matt Foley, followed by which we will invite all active duty military and all veterans present in this park right now to gather around the eternal flame for our annual Remembering Our Veterans photo. Father Matt.
Gracious God, we ask that we be offered safe passage to our domains that we will never forget and always remember. Graciously grant our country with peace, the courage to defend, and with steadfast devotion to those that have gone before us. Amen.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of Arlington Heights, for joining us today. It's been an honor to be with you here today and to honor our fallen heroes. Please, all active duty and veterans, please gather around the eternal flame. The photographers are waiting for you right now.